Welcome back, wonderful technologists. Welcome back to the CT Educator Podcast. So, hope you guys are having a wonderful week. It has been very rainy here in Chicago, and life is just lifing. Like, I got a lot of stuff going on. So, as far as work and the amount of traumas and the amount of COVID and the amount of pneumonias that are coming into the hospital. So, it's been very interesting and, mom life and all this stuff that is just really going on. So yeah, my plate is like completely full. I need a vacation, to be quite honest. So hope you guys are having a great week. I know this episode is a little late too, mom life, things get in the way, but I'm dropping this episode right now. So in this episode, I want to talk about, which I don't think is something that we talk about a whole lot, is when you are the new technologist, when you are the newbie in the department. Okay. So I figure I take time out to kind of focus a little bit on that aspect so that any new technologist that is listening to this podcast, because this podcast is for everyone, just so I can give you some tips to take away when you're starting your career in CT and you're starting your journey so that you can make sure that you get the best training and education possible. So I know I was a beginner 20 years ago. I know what it's like to be the little fish in a very big pond with a very large department of all technologists. I mean, my department right now, we have like 35 techs. So it's a very large department and, there's a lot of dynamics, a lot of personalities and things like that kind of go through our department, and some people are set in their ways. So, but there's also longevity. There are technologists that have been there for years, 30 plus years that are still working there. And it's always good to make sure you suck the knowledge out of these technologists. So I want to start out by kind of going through when you're new, you're starting out CT, you've probably never looked at a CT image ever in your life, and you are like, holy crap, like, how do I look at these images? What am I looking at? What do I do? How do I set up this exam? So us as the seasoned senior technologists really need to take these new technologists under our belt and just really give them the tools and the resources so they can become good technologists. Now, I've seen a lot of bad technologists out there, and I know you guys that are listening have seen it, and they exist, okay? There's at least one or two in the department, okay? So I come correct and I come real on this podcast, and I'm going to tell you exactly how it is. We know that there are a couple of bad apples, and they will just take the path of least resistance and show the newer technologist that is trying to learn a lot of bad habits. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that we eliminate these bad habits. Bad habits are not good. And it's not good to start off with having, a new technologist starting off with bad habits, because what happens is those bad habits just continue throughout their career. And then when somebody tries to correct them later on, it's like, oh, well, that's how I've always done it. And that's the mentality that they fall under, which is not the right mentality to have. Okay. So when we have these new technologists that are training, they're learning, the best way is just to show them where everything is at. I think that's one of the biggest things. Show them where the contrast is at. Show them where to get sheets. Show them, where to get the syringes, where we get oral contrast, if you do that, where we get our supplies, when we start IVs, when we need gauze and tape and tegaderm and things like that, where all the biopsy supplies are, where the EKG leads are when we do hearts, and, all the EKG stickers. So it's really important just to show them a layout of the department and where they can find everything. The next thing is show them exactly when they are scanning a patient, show them exactly what to look for on each type of exam. Okay, so if it's a head CT, make sure they know their starting and end points, making sure that they understand, hey, this is an axial exam, unless you have like a 256, which we have one at our hospital. When we scan heads, that gantry doesn't tilt. It's too big with too many detectors. Okay. So show them, let them know what is the purpose of angling when we do a axial head CT, when we do abdomen and pelvises, when we do PE studies. It's important to let them know exactly how to acquire that scan, what they need to do to execute it, and how they should be properly ISO centering the patient and making sure that they get all the correct anatomy and make sure that they execute the exam correctly. Okay. Because I think that because we're such a high demand department and there's so many dynamics going there and we're so busy, we forget these things and expect them to just automatically know when you have a technologist that has never looked at a CT scan and has never operated one. And then make sure that they know where everything is behind the console. Make sure they know how to operate the power injector. Make sure they know how to, correctly switch from, one window level to another. Making sure that they know how to find the exams and, just all that. Now, when it comes to all the technical factors, that's something that you could show them as they get comfortable with scanning. Okay. Then you can move on to that, because I think as a new technologist, a newbie, you really need to know where everything is, how to acquire the scan, how to set up the patient, how to inject contrast, how to look for an infiltration, and just know the basics, ins and outs of how to really execute the exam. So that is that's another tip that is really good that I picked up on. Now, the next thing that I want you new technologists to do, and I think this is super important, non-negotiable, okay, is make sure you have a notepad so you can write things down. I could probably show you the notepads that I had in CT, and there were multiple ones, because you cannot fit all that information into your brain. There is no freaking way that your brain is going to remember all the things that we do in CT. Our department is way too fucking complex that you need to write things down, whether it's a protocol, whether it's, a certain exam where you need to know start and end, how many window levels you need to do, how much contrast, how many scans you're going to acquire. So those are the things that you need to make sure that you do, because it is super important to write things down so you can remember. And then once you start to become more experienced, then you'll just remember things. But I'm telling you, having a notebook, writing things down is super duper important. Non-negotiable. You need it because starting out, it's very overwhelming. Now, the last thing that I will share is make sure you take your time. Don't rush, and make sure that you execute everything correctly. Now, there's technologists that have a certain speed. That is them, because they've been in the business a long time, and I know I'm probably faster than a new person. However, you as the new person, make sure that you take your time. Do not rush through the process. Do not think, oh, well, I need to go at this technologist's speed. You need to take your time, because when you rush and you don't know exactly how to execute something and you rush through the whole process, you're going to make a mistake. The patient's going to get hurt. So I highly recommend that please make sure you take your time, do it correctly. And if you're slow, that's fine. Just, at least you are executing it correctly versus speeding through the process and the patient getting hurt. So that's one of the most important things that I think you can take away from this episode, in making sure that when you start off your training and your education in CT, you start off on the right foot. Okay. Because I love to see nothing more than technologists starting out on the right foot, because then later on, they are freaking awesome technologists and they just blow me out of the water. So I absolutely love that. That's why I love teaching, and I love to educate other technologists and just sharing knowledge, because we're not gatekeeping, we're sharing knowledge, right? So if you want some more in-depth just resources, I do teach a 101 course. So I have a couple of 101 courses in CT. I have an awesome ebook. I have a PDF resource. Everything will be linked in the show notes so that you can kind of get a perspective on, as a new technologist, how to do things. It's just a guide, and the courses are guides so that you can go ahead and just make sure that you start off your training and education tip top. Okay. So, hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you guys have an awesome week, and make sure, come on over to Instagram. Follow me on Instagram and let's chat. I'll be posting some awesome reels and things like that. I've just got some things in the works, but motherhood is, number one. So, if you have any questions or anything, don't forget, you guys can always shoot me an email. I respond to all my emails. Might take me a day or two, but I will respond. Everything will be on the show notes, so make sure you check out all the links, and hope you guys have an awesome week, and we will talk next week. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you would like to share your CT experience, have an interesting story to share, or need help in your CT training, please email me your questions at contact@thecteducator.com. Come on over to Instagram at the CT Educator. My DMs are always open, so let's chat. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, and happy scanning.